So good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday service. This would be a good time for those of us here, if you haven't, to turn your phone off. This is the first Sunday nobody has reached to turn their phone off. If there are people watching, I know there's nobody here that's never been to one of our centers, but if there's anybody watching during the week that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are, and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. Our practitioner today is Ginny Panic, and our reader is Barb Loftus. Today is Unexpected Income Sunday. I just want to remind people, we didn't have enough people to do it today, but from now on, from 9:30 to 9:45 every Sunday, we're going to do a pre-service silent meditation. Anybody is welcome, and we're doing that. We used to do it, but I've had people request that we start it again, so we will. Our annual meeting is Sunday, March 5th, which is, I believe, 2 weeks from today. And we invite all members to come and hear about our situation. And also, we have one opening on the board. So if there's anybody listening that would like to volunteer to be on the board, see me or any board member, and we'll tell you what it's about. And the only qualifications to be on the board are to be a member and to have taken 1 year of classes or the equivalent in the judgment of the minister. And like I said last week, I take bribes. Okay, one last announcement. I said last week, Becky and I want to begin teaching a class on conscious aging. And this class, we are trained facilitators by the Institute of Noetic Science, which is a group started by the astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who, when he was, I think, the 6th person to walk on the moon, and when he was coming home, he looked and saw the Earth, and he just had this expansive consciousness. And he came home and started IONS, and they do all kinds of scientific research, particularly a lot on consciousness. And Becky and I took a class from them to become facilitators for this group. It's an 8-week class, and some of the topics will cover our self-compassion, forgiveness, a life review. The idea really behind the class is to say, hey, you know, we might be aging, but we have a lot to offer. It's not the end of our life. And it's a really positive, wonderful class. It'll be 8 weeks long. We're going to start it on Tuesday night, March 14th from 6 to 8, and we're going to do it on Zoom. So nobody will have to drive. Nobody will have to drive at night. So we're going to put a sign-up sheet in the back for people that are interested. Unity is going to do it too, and it should be a really great class. And I can say that because as part of our training, we had to take the class, and we both got a lot out of it. So with that, we'll do another song.
So let us move into this sacred space of now. Close your eyes and just rest in your chair. Feel supported. Feel open and receptive. Pick up your shoulders and just let them gently drop. Anything that you have to do later on today can be left at the door and picked up when you leave. So we know that there is only this one joy, this one freedom, this one life, and it is abundantly supplied. It is ever available. It is the truth of who we are. It lives within us. It knows us better than we know ourselves. And as we are open and receptive to the glory of God being revealed, we must let go and release the past and past experiences and let them go. We keep the wisdom of the past. We let go of the past. We move into this now moment by releasing our fear or anticipation of the future. We let it take care of itself. Because all we have is this now moment, this day, this hour, this moment, this presence that is available to us in this moment of a truth. And we embrace it, and we are open and receptive to it, and we allow it to use us for its greater good, moving us into a greater expression of the truth of who we are. And I am very grateful and thankful that this is true for myself and each one. And so I'm grateful for the Center for Spiritual Living, Space Coast. I'm grateful for all the volunteers. I'm grateful for Dr. Reverend Ron Fox and his message this morning that opens our heart to a greater understanding of life. And as we take the ideas and the truths that he puts forth this morning, life takes on a more glorious experience. We just embrace ourselves in this truth. And so I am grateful and allow it to be released into the great I am, because I know the great I am always says yes. And so it is.
Good morning. We've heard that it is better to give than to receive. Jesus taught that if we forgive, we will be forgiven, that if we give, we will be given too. He also taught us to do unto others as we would have done unto us. The Quran says, he who does evil shall be requited for it. In Buddhism, we find the idea of karma, which is that whatever action we take will lead to future consequences. The emphasis among all these teachings is on giving, and has led many of us to believe that giving is all that matters. But this would be an incomplete understanding. What is being taught is a cycle that starts with giving, but ends with receiving. Yes, perhaps our focus should be on giving, because really that's the only thing we can control. But we must be open to what comes to us. Because for these teachings to work, we have to also be open to receiving. The Stoics expressed how important receiving is in the principle amor fati, which is to love everything that happens and accept everything that happens, love fate. And they mean everything that happens. If we throw filters labeled good or bad, we are blocking the energy of the cycle. So if we are blocking the receiving channel, we are blocking God and the creative energy. We are blocking not only the bad things we fear, but also any good that might come to us. Giving is the active thing we do to start the cycle. Receiving is the passive thing we do to complete the cycle. It is so important. Receiving is the channel through which all of our resources come to us. Don't block it.
Good morning again, and thank you. Hello. So my title today is Being Receptive, if you hadn't guessed. And I want to start with, I want to open with two quotes from Ernest Holmes, who founded the Center for Spiritual Living. And the first one is, he wrote, "Freedom means the ability to do, say, and think as one wishes, to express life as one personally desires. To be only able to think and dream of freedom is not liberty. A prisoner with a life sentence can do that." And I think what he's saying is that we're free to make choices and living, and we can live those choices into our life. We have the freedom to make the choice to do that. And the other quote I wanted to read from, he wrote, "Know your own mind, train yourself to think what you wish to think, to be what you wish to be, to feel what you wish to feel, and place no limit on principle," meaning no limit on God. So why does he say that? I think he says it because the word we speak is the law of our life. The word that we put out is what we get back. And he was trying to tell us that and to tell us that the only thing, when he says place no limit, the only thing that puts limits on God is us and our belief. So in the book, The Power of Flow, the two authors tell a story about a man who's living in Texas. And he wakes up one morning after having a dream, and he says to himself, so I'm moving to Denver, because that was the dream he had, that he was going to move to Denver. Now, what you need to know is he's lived in Texas for 8 years, and he knows nobody in Denver. Within a really short period of time, he gets notice of a workshop that's taking place in Denver, and he laughs and decides to go. It's a week-long workshop. At the end of the workshop, somebody comes up to him and says, you know, I've really noticed you here, and I like your work. And he offers him a job in Denver. And this fellow goes home, and he thinks, well, he owns a really specialized business. And he says, so it's going to take me probably a year to find a buyer for my business. About a week later, he's having breakfast with a friend, and he's telling the friend that a friend's not interested in his business, but another friend of theirs is walking by, and they invite him to come join them for breakfast. He tells the friend, and the friend says, don't talk to anybody else. I want your business. A very short time after that, he rents a condo, this fellow. He gets a letter from the condo owner that he's putting the condo up for sale. And now this guy, the path is totally clear. He's moving to Denver. And for me, the point of it is, he says he knows that he's connected to something deeper. And he said, how do I know? I feel it. I can feel it. And he said, because I feel it when I'm in that state, he said he has meaningful coincidences after meaningful coincidence. Now, we might not use the word coincidence, but you know what he's talking about. And he says, they're like magic in my life. They're like magic in my life. But when you think about it, none of that would have happened if he wasn't open and receptive. How many people would have had that dream and said, oh, that's a lot of bull. I don't know anybody in Denver. I ain't going there. But he was open to hearing the message. And for me, part of the message is no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, that spirit is always with us. And what our job is to remain open to those messages. You know, whenever I teach a class, I always start the first part of the class. I ask everybody, we go around and share, and I ask them, how did God show up in your life? And the answers I get are always fascinating, because it's really interesting when you're open to spirit, how spirit shows up in so many different places in our life. I want to read something to you that I've read the whole thing before, but I just want to read a piece of it. It's by Oriah Mountain Dreamer, and it's in her book, The Call. And she says, and this isn't all a direct quote, it's part her, little part me. I've heard it all my life. A voice calling a name I recognized as my own. Sometimes it's a whisper, sometimes it's urgent. Always, the message is the same. Wake up, my love. You're walking asleep. There's no safety in that. And what she's saying is this voice, and you know, it's a universal voice. It pushes us to be all we can be, to continue learning, to continue growing, and not to play it safe, because playing it safe isn't really playing it safe. It's not everything we think it's going to be. And when I thought about that yesterday, I went and I got this quote that I have. It's by Anonymous. And here it is. When we walk to the edge of all the light we have and take a step into the darkness of the unknown, we must believe that one of two things will happen. There'll be something solid to stand on, or we'll be taught to fly. So one of my favorite books that we have is a book by Barbara DeAngelis called Real Moments. And in the book, I was looking over the book again this week, and she says, we experience happiness because of how we live each moment. And she says, and I think this is so profound, if you can't be happy with who you are and what you have, you'll not be happy when you get what you think you want. I'm just gonna say that again. If you can't be happy now with who you are and what you have, you will not be happy when you get what you think you want. So we need to be happy in the moment. And so she says, what are real moments? And she describes three elements that constitute a real moment. So I'm going to share them with you. The first one is consciousness. And she said they occur when you're consciously and completely experiencing where you are and what you're doing. And so she's kind of saying what Eckhart Tolle does, you need to live in the moment. And when I think about living in the moment, I think I might have talked about this before. When Becky and I lived in Arizona, we had this fabulous dog who was an Akita, and he was a big guy, he was 90 pounds. And one Saturday, I was taking him for a walk. And I don't remember where my head was, but it wasn't on the walk. It was probably, Saturdays I work on the message. So I was probably thinking about my message and thinking about church. And if you can picture this, so I'm walking sumo and he's prancing around, smelling stuff. There's other dogs, you know, and I'm just not there. And it was almost like he picked up the fact that I'm not there, because at some point he turned around and he kind of loped over to me and he jumped up and he licked my face as if to say, where the hell are you? Come on, it's a beautiful day. And it really moved me because I realized I wasn't with him, you know, physically I was with him, but I wasn't. And there must have been some sense that he was saying, come on, this is a really beautiful day. That's what she's talking about being consciously and completely experiencing where we are. The second element she talks about is connection. And she said, that's when you make an emotional connection between yourself and someone or something else. And what happens then is the boundaries, the apparent boundaries that separate us are penetrated. And the third thing she talks about is surrender. When we totally surrender what we're experiencing and we're 100% engaged in what we're doing. She said those three elements make up that kind of a day where we're really into what we're doing. And she tells this story that I personally really related to because she lives in Southern California. And Becky and I used to live in Southern California. And she talks about a day, she lived near PCH, Pacific Coast Highway, which is a road right along the ocean. And she's in a hurry. She's got a lot of stuff going on in her life. She's going home and the light turns red. And she's stuck in this red light and she's looking at her watch and looking at her watch and can't wait for the light to turn green. And then I guess she kind of turns and she says, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Because right over here, there's sand, there's the ocean. It's a beautiful sunny day and the sun is glistening off the ocean. And she says to herself, millions of people come here every year to see what I can see, and I don't even notice it because I'm too busy to notice it. And so what she was saying, she realized she wasn't open and receptive to experiencing a real moment because she was too busy do it. And how often does that happen to us? You know, and I said I really related to it. I'll just, when Becky and I we lived in San Clemente, and Becky worked in Orange County, a little further north. She would always go the long way to work because she could ride along Pacific Coast Highway and always see the ocean. It was a really great way, particularly on the way home, to unwind before you got home. You know, right now, Becky and I live by a beautiful river. And a lot of times when the weather's nice, when I'm working on my messages Friday and Saturday, I go sit in our back porch and I work from there. And when I want to take a break and look up, I can sometimes see boats, dolphins, every once in a while, a manatee. But even if I could just see the water, it's just all of God's beauty all around me, and it never gets old. It never, ever, ever gets old. You know, Wayne Dyer asked the question, how do I trust the source that I can't see or touch? I mean, I think that's a good question. And his answer is that we can always tell ourselves that something created everything that we see, everything that's around us. And we can make the choice to trust it. It's a choice. We can make the choice to trust that there's a power greater than we are in the universe. So Ralph Waldo Trine was a contemporary, I think, of Holmes. And one of the things he said is that we make life more complex than it really is. It's a lot simpler. He said we spend too much time with the effects of life, meaning the outer stuff. And he said we don't spend enough time in the realm of cause. And we need to step in to the divine flow or the divine current and remember that our lives are governed by universal law. And that law is the law of cause and effect. And he's simply saying what we put out is what we get back. And we need to live our life, therefore, from the inside out and concentrate more on what we're putting out rather than looking only at the effect, what's there. So Mark Nepo tells a really interesting story about a young man who's late for a conference in Wyoming. And he's in his truck. And I think this is a true story. He's speeding along. And all of a sudden, he finds himself in the middle of a herd of elk who don't care that he has to go to a meeting, okay? And they're all around this truck. So what does he do? He honks. And the honking brings them even closer, and they're staring at him. And so he turns the truck off. And at some point, what he realizes is they aren't staring at him. They're staring beyond him at the beautiful sunlight that's about to go down. They're looking at the beauty of the sky, not of him. And he gets so enraptured when he realizes that as the sun is going down, he stays there and until the last elk has left. And it totally transformed where he was mentally because he got himself lost in the oneness that the elks had opened between him and them and the beauty of the sky. And Nepo says half the time we're eager to go somewhere because we feel uncomfortable where we are. And it reminded me, years and years ago, I was really unhappy about something. And I was talking to a minister that I consider a mentor, Reverend Linda McNamara. And I was going to quit my job. And she said to me, just think about this, Ron. Are you running away from something? are you running towards something? Think about it, because if you're running away, don't. Run to something, but not away. And that's exactly what Mark Nepo is saying. And he's saying we try so hard to keep the difficult out of our life that somehow and sometime we also don't keep the beautiful out of our life. And he said life isn't something to push through. It's something to just enter and absorb. And he said the journey is always different than what we expect and much longer than we imagined. And I wasn't sure if I was going to tell this, but I will, because it's just an interesting story to me. Years ago, again, when I lived in Southern California, I had a friend who was a really, really great professional, a good-looking, handsome guy, had everything going for him. And one day, I found out he was moving to Cleveland. Now, nothing against Cleveland, but very little compares to Newport Beach in Southern California. And certainly Cleveland doesn't. So I called him up and I said to him, how come you're moving to Cleveland? And he said, because life's too long. And I said, Scott, usually people say life's too short. And he said to me, here's why I'm moving to Cleveland. I met somebody and I fell in love. And I realized, and she lives in Cleveland. He said, I realized when I say life's too long, I'm probably going to have a very long life after I choose to stop working. And I have a great job here, and I love living in Southern California. But if I stay here and I only have the job, what am I going to have when I retire and have all those years? Will they be empty years where if I move to be with somebody I love, that I really care for, it's probably not going to be as beautiful a place to live, but I'm going to have a much better life when I retire. And that's what Nepo's saying. Life might not always be what we expect, but we can bring into life what we want it to be. So I want to close with a quote from Hazrat Inya Khan, who was the head of the Western Sufis years ago. And he wrote, I asked for strength, and God gave me difficult times to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to learn to solve. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me a brain and brawn to work. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me people to help. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed. God bless you. Thank you for listening, and have a wonderful week. We actually did the offertory before, but if there's anybody that wants to, for some reason, everybody gave before we started the service. But if somebody wants to give now, Reverend Jen is back there. It also is unexpected income, and some people contributed to that. I know Becky and I have unexpected income. She's got the checks, so, but Jenna took us out to lunch one day, so that's our unexpected income. So, we don't get a chance to see Ginny here live very often. We get to see her on Zoom, but I asked her, as long as she's here, if she would also do the closing prayer for us, because we all love how she prays. So, and then we'll come back and do our song and affirmation.
So let us know that forever and always, everything is moving as it should. No matter what it looks like, God is in the mix. God is here now, moving us forward in greater ways. It is for us to surrender to this glorious expression that only knows to give and comes through us, from us, within us. And so I'm grateful for this and so much more. And so it is.
Thank you. We made her do double work today. So if we could stand, we'll do our closing song and then we'll do the closing affirmation and we can hang out together for a while.